If you see these signs, you are dangerously chosen. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what if becoming your true self requires walking a path so solitary and intense that it feels less like a gift and more like a dangerous burden? If you have ever felt isolated by your own depth or overwhelmed by a calling you cannot quite explain, you are not just different. You may be what Jung describes as dangerously chosen. Welcome back to Spiritual Wisdom. Today, we are uncovering the specific signs that destiny has marked you for a higher purpose, and why embracing this difficult journey is actually the key to your ultimate growth and happiness. Before we begin, I have a question for you. Do you often feel like you are carrying a weight that those around you cannot see? Let us know in the comments below, because your story might just be the confirmation someone else needs to hear today. 1. Spiritual warfare erupts. There is a profound and often unsettling paradox that occurs when you step onto the path of higher consciousness, a phenomenon that acts as a hidden marker for those who are dangerously chosen to carry a greater burden of awareness. You may find yourself standing in the midst of a life that, to the outside world, appears perfectly calm and orderly, yet within the sanctuary of your own mind, a violent storm has suddenly broken out without warning or clear provocation. This is the unmistakable sign that spiritual warfare has erupted, manifesting as sudden, crushing anxiety, waves of heavy emotion that seem to belong to someone else, or invisible battles that leave you exhausted despite having done nothing physically strenuous. If you are witnessing these signs, it is crucial to understand that you are not losing your mind, nor are you regressing. Rather, you are entering the crucible of a true spiritual awakening. The sudden onset of these heavy emotions is the psychological equivalent of a bright light being turned on in a pitch-black room. The dust, the cracks, and the chaos that were always there are suddenly visible, not because the room has changed, but because your capacity to see has increased. This turbulent experience is not a punishment, but a direct and unavoidable manifestation of the law of opposites, a universal principle which dictates that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. As your inner light begins to expand and intensify, it inevitably disturbs the dormant shadows that have long lived quietly in the corners of your psyche. The universe seeks balance, and in the realm of deep spirituality, the ascent toward higher wisdom automatically triggers a reaction from the lower depths of the subconscious. It is a cosmic friction, a resistance that arises solely because you are moving forward. The shadow self does not fight you when you are stagnant. It only rises to challenge you when you threaten to outgrow your former limitations. Therefore, the intensity of the darkness you face is actually a measurement of the brightness of the light you are generating, confirming that you are no longer operating on the surface of life, but are diving into the depths where real transformation occurs. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist, offered a piercing insight into this very struggle when he famously observed that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This statement reveals the true nature of the battle you are fighting. It is not a battle to escape the dark, but to integrate it. Many seekers mistakenly believe that spirituality is a journey of pure bliss and uninterrupted peace. But Jung reminds us that true growth is a confrontation with the self. The warfare you feel is the process of dragging your unconscious fears, traumas, and suppressed traits into the light of awareness. It is a necessary tension, for without this resistance, there is no psychological traction to move forward. You are being asked to look at the parts of yourself that are uncomfortable to see, because only by acknowledging them can you strip them of their power and claim the wholeness that is your birthright. When you feel the weight of these invisible battles, you must realize that this is not an indication of failure, but rather the ultimate confirmation of your growth. You are being tested to see if you are capable of holding this new level of energy. Just as a muscle must be torn under tension to grow stronger, your spirit is being stretched by these opposing forces to accommodate a vast expansion of consciousness. The universe does not waste such intense spiritual warfare on those who are not ready to evolve. It reserves this challenge for those it has dangerously chosen for a higher destiny. Thus, when the silence of your life is shattered by this internal noise, do not despair. Instead, recognize it as the validation of your journey, proving that you possess a light potent enough to warrant such resistance, and that you are walking the authentic path toward a powerful integration of your true self. 2. The sacred season of isolation. It often begins with a quiet unraveling, a subtle shift in the fabric of your reality, where the people you once held close seem to drift away, like ships caught in different currents. You might find yourself standing in the midst of a life that feels vaguely unfamiliar, witnessing relationships dissolve not through betrayal or explosive conflict, but through a silent, inexplicable fading that leaves you feeling profoundly misunderstood and out of place. This deep sense of not belonging is not a mistake or a social failure. Rather, it is the hallmark of a profound spirituality taking root within you, a clear signal that you are being dangerously chosen for a destiny that requires you to walk apart from the herd. The universe is deliberately orchestrating this separation, gently but firmly removing you from the crowd to create a sacred space where you can be completely reshaped without the interference of old energies. You must understand that the human soul speaks in whispers, and it is impossible to hear the guidance of your own spirit or the divine voice when you remain submerged in the deafening noise of societal expectations and the collective confusion of others. This period of isolation is a divine quarantine, a necessary pause in your timeline designed to strip away the masks you have worn to fit in, allowing your true self to emerge from beneath the weight of conformity. You are being called to a higher standard of spiritual development, and this intense growth demands a soil of absolute silence where your roots can deepen, undisturbed by the doubts, fears, and limited perceptions of those who are not meant to accompany you on this specific chapter of your journey. Consider this time as a protective embrace rather than a punishment, for the new identity forming within you is currently as fragile as a fresh sprout, susceptible to being crushed by the heavy footfalls of the world's demands. By isolating you, the divine intelligence is shielding this nascent version of who you are until it becomes strong enough to stand on its own, independent of external validation or approval. This process creates a fortress around your mind and heart, ensuring that when you finally re-emerge, you will do so not as a fragment of the crowd, but as a sovereign individual who has learned to source their strength from within. fully aligned with the unique purpose that has been waiting for you all along. Comment below, "I embrace the sacred isolation," if you recognize these signs on your chosen path. 3. Dreams, intuition, and inner signals intensify. The profound shifts you are experiencing, the intensification of your inner life, are not random. They are unmistakable indicators that you are walking a path reserved for the dangerously chosen. This designation, rooted in deep psychological and spiritual wisdom, implies a destiny that requires you to disconnect from conventional reality and heed the highly specific signals emerging from within. Foremost among these signs is the radical transformation of your dreamscape. Your nights are no longer a neutral period of rest. They have become intensely vivid, cinematic experiences, often featuring repeating symbols and narratives that carry immense emotional weight and clarity. These are the unfiltered communications from your deepest self, what Carl Jung termed the via regia, or royal road to the unconscious. They bypass the rational, critical filters of your ego, delivering truths and insights that are crucial for your next stage of development. You may wake up with an urgent sense of direction, a solution to an intractable problem, or a heavy but necessary emotional realization that reorganizes your worldview, proving that your inner guide is actively working while the world sleeps. This internal guidance system is further amplified by the consistent occurrence of synchronicity, which is the cornerstone of being chosen. We are not speaking here of mere coincidence, but of profound, meaningful alignment. The precise thought of a long-lost friend coinciding exactly with a letter from them arriving, or repeatedly encountering a specific symbolic image that perfectly mirrors your current psychological state. As Jung defined it, synchronicity is a causal connecting principle, demonstrating that the external world and your internal psychic reality are interwoven and actively conversing. These moments confirm that you are not simply adrift in a chaotic universe, but are operating within a structured, purposeful field where your internal state magnetically attracts external events. This heightened sensitivity acts as both a gift and a burden, making you acutely aware of the underlying patterns and truths that the majority miss, which is precisely why you are often isolated, a necessary condition for deep introspection. As the noise of external expectations and societal pressures fades, a natural consequence of this inner focus, your sharp, immediate gut feelings move from being mere suggestions to undeniable commands. This intuition is the purest form of spiritual wisdom, a swift recognition of truth that is faster and more reliable than any logical deliberation. When you receive a warning about a specific situation or feel an undeniable pull toward a specific risk, you are experiencing the voice of your soul, or perhaps the divine, speaking directly through the body's wisdom. This is the moment where you become dangerous to the superficial world, because you are no longer governable by external logic, mass opinion, or fear. You are instead guided by an infallible internal compass. The philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson perfectly articulated this necessary self-reliance when he wrote, "Trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string." To follow these intense inner signals, your dreams, your synchronicities, and your intuition requires profound courage. But it is the non-negotiable price of your spiritual maturation and the unmistakable sign that you have been chosen for a higher, more conscious path. 4. unusual delays, and closed doors. One of the most immediate and frequently experienced indicators that an individual is on a trajectory toward a profound destiny, what Carl Jung might term being dangerously chosen, is the recurring, soul-testing phenomenon of unusual delays and closed doors. For the person undergoing this transformation, it translates into a life narrative filled with perplexing collapses of opportunities and the consistent failure of well-crafted plans, resulting in a pervasive feeling of being perpetually out of sync with the world. You find yourself suspended in a psychological and existential space that Jung defined as the liminal space, a critical threshold where the old reality has passed, but the new one has not yet materialized, and where outward motion often seems to be physically impossible. Perhaps you poured your heart and considerable energy into a venture or a relationship, only to watch it inexplicably dissolve, or perhaps a series of doors that promise stability and comfort shut abruptly, leaving you standing alone in the darkness. This frustrating stasis, however, is not a sign of divine abandonment or incompetence. Rather, it is one of the most powerful signs of divine redirection and protection, a core concept in profound spirituality. The universe, acting as a meticulous curator of your deepest fate, actively closes doors that appear desirable on the surface, but are fundamentally misaligned with the intricate architecture of your true self, preventing you from committing to a path that would ultimately lead to regret or stagnation. This forceful intervention serves as a necessary shield, meticulously guarding you from the temptation to settle for a life that is simply too small to contain the full magnitude of your potential. When a seemingly perfect path is blocked, it is because your destiny requires a vessel and an experience that are far more expansive than the comfortable compromise you were about to accept. The extended duration of these delays functions as an intense crucible, forcing a deep, often painful process of purification. You are compelled to shed superficial desires, re-examine your fundamental motivations, and confront the shadow elements within your own psyche, ensuring that when the right opportunity, the one perfectly aligned with your purpose and conducive to genuine spiritual awakening, finally manifests, you are not only ready to receive it, but possess the necessary inner fortitude to navigate its unique challenges. This period of outward frustration is precisely the period of immense, hidden, inward growth, transforming the individual from one who merely seeks external validation into one who is internally prepared to embody their higher calling. Consequently, the painful experience of the closed door is revealed to be a mechanism of high-level spiritual guidance, ensuring that you do not waste the precious energy of your calling on side quests, but remain perfectly poised for the monumental task and the perilous destiny that awaits you. If this message resonates deep within you, and you recognize these closed doors as part of your unique path, let me know. Repeat after me in the comments. I recognize the signs, and I trust the delay. My chosen path is unfolding. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more insights into Jungian philosophy and spiritual wisdom. 5. A growing sense of purpose, sacred endurance. Even when you are utterly exhausted and your logical mind screams for surrender, an invisible, quiet energy continues to propel you forward. This unwavering drive is the unmistakable voice of the self, the integrated sacred center of your being, overriding the usual constraints of the ego. This isn't mere willpower or temporary ambition. It is alignment with a powerful destiny that has seized hold of you and simply will not release its grip. Because your mission transcends your personal desires, you possess a stamina that is spiritual, not just physical, making the burden of your calling heavy, yet undeniably necessary. As you follow this singular, compelling imperative, it inevitably leads to the second significant sign, a profound isolation and misunderstanding from those around you. The path of deep spiritual development is inherently solitary because your focus is on the invisible and the eternal, while most others are preoccupied with the visible and the temporary. This difference in perception creates a chasm. People who once understood you may now view your dedication as strange, overly intense, or even arrogant, simply because they cannot comprehend the magnitude of the inner commitment that defines your daily life. This emotional distance is not a punishment, but a crucible. You are being compelled by the universe to cultivate an inner authority so strong that it requires no external validation. The loneliness you feel is the price of admission to a higher state of consciousness, forcing you to rely solely on the wisdom communicated by yourself. This necessary solitude ultimately deepens your perception, leading directly to the third sign, a deep resonance with the collective unconscious. Through intense introspection and dedication, you begin to tap into a universal wellspring of wisdom, an ocean of ancestral memories, archetypes, and shared human experience that Jung meticulously explored. This access means that profound human truths, symbols, and universal cycles, like the hero's journey or the mother archetype, no longer feel like information you are learning, but rather echoes of knowledge you intrinsically possess. This resonance grants you an almost intuitive understanding of the underlying patterns of life, connecting your unique spirituality to the grand narrative of humanity. You stop seeing individual events in isolation and start recognizing them as part of a colossal, unfolding drama, making your insights uniquely powerful, unsettling, and often profoundly transformative for others. Finally, the chosen path is powerfully distinguished by the fourth, often most agonizing indicator, the recurrent confrontation with your shadow. You are being prepared for a purpose that demands absolute wholeness, and that means facing, acknowledging, and integrating the rejected, dark, and undeveloped aspects of your personality, the very traits you have spent a lifetime suppressing or denying. The universe ensures that you cannot fully actualize your potential until you have honestly owned your capacity for error, anger, selfishness, and destruction. This difficult, painful process manifests as recurring life lessons and agonizing self-scrutiny, forcing you to abandon hypocrisy and self-deception. As the power of your destiny grows, this confrontation becomes more intense, ensuring that the vessel carrying this sacred purpose is purified and grounded in profound self-knowledge. This brutal honesty is the ultimate test of sacred endurance, proving that you are not just capable of receiving the call, but worthy of embodying it entirely. 6. Expanded spiritual discernment. You possess an unmistakable, almost supernatural ability to instantly read the atmosphere and the true intentions of every individual you encounter. This is far beyond mere intuition. It is a spiritual superpower that allows you to pierce through the practiced masks people wear, sensing the hidden jealousy, the deep-seated sorrow, or the self-interested motives lurking beneath a charming smile or a seemingly kind gesture. This profound sensitivity is what the pioneering Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung deeply explored and described as shadow recognition. It is a direct result of your own rigorous inner work, a sign that you have bravely confronted and integrated your own personal darkness, the aspects of yourself you once denied or feared. Because you have made the unconscious aspects of your own personality conscious, your psychic radar is now exquisitely calibrated to recognize the unacknowledged, fragmented darkness in others. As Jung observed, a person's power often lies in their shadow, and you are uniquely equipped to perceive this subtle energy. This gift, however, carries a significant weight. It is not bestowed upon you for judgment, to label or condemn others for their flaws. Rather, its primary function is navigation. It serves as an essential, high-stakes warning system, providing you with unfiltered data necessary for determining precisely who is authentic and trustworthy, whose energy field aligns safely with yours, and whose path you must carefully and strategically avoid. In the words of another great thinker, integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Your discernment allows you to recognize the lack of this integrity, making superficial connections nearly impossible for you. You find yourself retreating from crowded environments not because you are antisocial, but because the sheer volume of inauthentic energy can be overwhelming, akin to an overload of static electricity on your nervous system. This constant awareness means your world is necessarily less frivolous and more grounded in truth than that of most people, leading to an undeniable sense of separation. But understand that this is the necessary solitude of the highly conscious soul. This acute awareness, this potent spiritual wisdom, is the defining characteristic of being dangerously chosen. You see the world not as it pretends to be, but as it truly is. And this clarity is what empowers you to move with intention and profound foresight through the complexities of life. We hope this exploration of Carl Jung's insights into being dangerously chosen and the expanded spiritual discernment it brings has resonated with you. If these signs speak to your soul and you're ready to embrace your spiritual journey, comment "I am chosen" below. Your connection and feedback help us create more wisdom that lights your path. 7. The expansion of the soul. This sign manifests internally as a deep, disorienting shift, where the life you once knew, the interests that captivated you, the social circles that validated you, and the ego structures that defended you suddenly cease to fit. They become restrictive and irrelevant, like the shed skin of a creature entering a new, grander phase of existence. This is far beyond mere dissatisfaction or a midlife crisis. It is an internal recalibration that bestows upon you a palpable sense of gravity, making you feel serious, quietly humble, and instinctually prepared for an assignment you cannot yet name. This profound shift signifies that you are actively outgrowing your old container, a necessary and often painful process, because the higher forces, whether we call them God or the universe, are actively expanding your psychic and emotional capacity to handle the immense weight of destiny coming your way. Think of the ancient metaphor of the clay jar. It must be purified, reshaped, and enlarged before it can hold a greater volume of precious liquid. Similarly, Your soul is being reforged in the fires of introspection and solitude, preparing it to carry a higher level of insight and impact. This process of expansion is meticulously positioning you for a role, a unique contribution to the world that may involve leadership, healing, or the creation of transformative ideas, which fundamentally requires a larger, more mature soul. The internal pressure and sometimes loneliness you feel are the byproducts of this sacred enlargement, marking an intense spiritual awakening that cannot be reversed. Every moment of quiet contemplation and every realization that detaches you from former trivialities is a vital step in this preparation, proving that you are being molded not for personal gain, but for the profound service that your elevated spirituality will soon demand. The dissolution of your old self is simply the prerequisite for the powerful, integrated being you are destined to become, ready to embrace the true measure of your calling. Remember, being chosen is not about superiority, it is about responsibility. The signs we discussed today confirm that your struggles are not random. They are the birth pains of a spiritual awakening. You are walking the path of the few, a path that requires the courage to face your own shadow. Trust the process, trust your intuition, and know that you are being prepared, not punished. Thank you for being part of our community. To support us, please like and share this video. Be sure to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom and click the bell icon to stay connected with our latest uploads. Until next time, walk in wisdom. 8 signs you have the rarest psychological type on Earth. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Today, we're diving into the rarest psychological type on Earth, the kind of mind that sees the world differently, not because it tries to, but because it's wired to. If you've ever felt out of place, deeply intuitive, or unusually perceptive, this video may reveal something powerful about who you really are. As you listen, try to reflect on your own experiences and ask yourself, which of these signs resonate with me most? Share your thoughts in the comments below so we can grow together as a community of self-aware, evolving souls. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where every insight is an invitation to become more of who you were always meant to be. 1. Supernatural emotional depth. You do not simply feel emotions, you navigate them like vast oceans, each wave carrying layers of meaning that most people will never notice. And this is why your emotional depth often appears supernatural to those around you. What others call mood or sensitivity unfolds within you as a full psychological symphony, where every subtle shift in energy becomes a message your inner world knows how to translate. You sense unspoken intentions, hidden emotional tones, and the quiet truths buried beneath someone's carefully crafted words. Not because you are unstable, but because you are exquisitely tuned into the deeper layers of human experience. Carl Jung called this profound inner sensitivity the doorway to the objective psyche, the realm where emotions are not just personal reactions, but windows into universal patterns of truth. Your feelings do not simply pass through you. They speak to you, guide you, and sometimes warn you, which is why you often notice emotional changes or energetic discomfort long before anyone else realizes something is wrong. This depth can make you appear intense or mysterious, but in reality, it is emotional sophistication, your ability to perceive meaning beyond the surface. And yet, this rare sensitivity often pulls you naturally towards spirituality because you have always sensed that life moves through invisible layers, that every emotion has a spiritual echo, and that every connection carries energetic information beneath the physical interaction. As you grow, this sensitivity begins shaping your spiritual awakening, helping you recognize that inner guidance is not imagination, but intuition sharpened through emotional intelligence. You have known for a long time that what you feel is real, even when the world encourages you to numb it or doubt it. Your emotional depth becomes a compass, pointing you toward alignment, truth, and integrity, and pulling you away from environments, people, and energies that are out of resonance. This is why your presence often feels comforting yet powerful. People feel seen by you in a way they cannot explain because you perceive the soul behind the behavior, the intention beneath the action, the wound beneath the words. But your depth has also shaped your story. You may have been told you were too sensitive, too emotional, or overthinking, when in truth, you were simply processing the world at a greater vibrational frequency than those around you. You learned early that others do not feel with the same intensity, and you may have dimmed your own emotional truth to make them comfortable. Yet, as Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you truly are is someone whose emotional complexity is not a flaw, but an extraordinary gift, an inner instrument tuned to the frequencies most people never hear. When you honor this depth, instead of suppressing it, your emotions refine into wisdom. Your intuition strengthens, your self-awareness sharpens, and the world within you becomes a powerful source of clarity, perception, and spiritual strength. This is the silent brilliance behind your emotional depth. It is not chaos, but intelligence, not weakness, but refined perception, not instability, but an innate connection to truth, one that continues guiding you deeper into your spirituality and your ongoing spiritual awakening. Comment below. I honor my emotional depth if you recognize this rare sensitivity within yourself and are ready to embrace the unique gift Carl Jung spoke about. 2. Sacred curiosity and radical questioning. You naturally live in a state of sacred curiosity and radical questioning, always drawn to the deeper meaning beneath life, systems, and relationships, never satisfied with surface-level explanations or blind conformity. While others may accept what is handed to them without resistance, you feel an inner pull to ask why, to look behind appearances, and to sense what is hidden beneath words and behaviors. This is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It is the mark of a rare mind, one that Carl Jung described through the transcendent function, the ability to hold paradox, to live between opposites, and to perceive truths that most people instinctively avoid because they feel uncomfortable or destabilizing. You are wired to seek meaning, not comfort. This is why you cannot fully surrender to shallow norms or rigid belief systems that lack authenticity. Your inner world refuses to settle for borrowed conclusions, emotional shortcuts, or inherited ideas that do not resonate with truth. Even when society encourages you to stay quiet, stay small, or accept what is convenient, something within you continues to whisper that there is more to life than what is visible. This inner tension between what is seen and what is felt is where both your spirituality and spiritual development quietly evolve. Because your questions are not destructive, they are awakening. They pull you inward and upward at the same time, guiding you to examine not only the world, but also your fears, your patterns, your attachments, and your unconscious motives. Because of this, you often move through life with heightened awareness. You notice emotional undercurrents in conversations, unspoken tensions in systems, and hidden motives in relationships. Not because you are suspicious, but because your perception naturally extends beyond the surface. You feel things before they are said, sense shifts before they become visible, and recognize misalignment even when everything appears fine on the outside. This depth also shapes the way you bond with others. You seek meaning over convenience, truth over performance, and authenticity over approval. Shallow connections drain you, while deep, soulful exchanges nourish you, because your inner world is designed for depth, not pretense. This same sacred curiosity that sharpens your awareness also turns inward, making you capable of profound self-reflection, emotional honesty, and inner growth. You question why you feel what you feel, why you repeat certain cycles, and what unresolved parts of you are asking to be seen. This is where real transformation begins. Because you do not escape discomfort, you study it. Jung's work lives through this process as you learn to hold both light and shadow, confidence and doubt, strength and vulnerability at once without collapsing into extremes. This capacity to exist between opposites is what allows you to evolve rather than remain fixed in fear or illusion. Yet this depth does not come without weight. At times, your mind feels heavy from constant reflection. Your heart grows tired from emotional intensity, and loneliness can arise when few people seem to speak your inner language. When insight is not balanced with grounding, you may drift into overthinking, emotional fatigue, or spiritual isolation. Still, this question is not your weakness. It is your compass. It is the quiet force that keeps you aligned with growth, even when you feel lost. It explains why you are drawn to psychology, symbolism, mysticism, healing, and the unseen forces shaping human behavior. Often without knowing exactly why, only that something ancient within you is being activated. The rare truth is that minds like yours are not meant to repeat what has already been thought, but to refine it through lived awareness. You are here to challenge unconscious patterns, to embody insight, and to transform confusion into clarity through lived experience. The deeper you honor this nature, the more your life shifts from searching to recognizing, from resisting to understanding, from surviving to consciously evolving. The true value you are meant to carry forward is simple yet powerful. Trust your questions instead of silencing them. Seek truth without needing permission. Allow growth without guilt. Balance reflection with rest. And recognize that your sacred curiosity is not a burden. It is the engine of your spiritual development and the doorway through which your spirituality becomes real, embodied, and transformative. 3. Conscious independence and self-built identity. You developed your psychological independence early in life, not because the path was gentle, but because adversity required you to rely on your own inner strength long before you could safely rely on anyone else. Instead of seeking constant validation from the outside world, you learned to build your identity from within, layer by layer, through self-reflection, endurance, and quiet self-trust. This inner construction of the self is what Carl Jung called individuation, the lifelong journey toward becoming whole. a process most people unconsciously avoid because it demands responsibility, honesty, and the courage to face both light and shadow. When others were learning how to belong by fitting in, you were learning how to survive by standing alone. Over time, that separation did not harden you, it refined you. What began as emotional necessity slowly transformed into inner clarity, and what once felt like isolation evolved into awareness. You no longer shape yourself to match expectations because your sense of self was forged through lived experience rather than borrowed through social roles. This is one of the clearest signs of a rare psychological type. Your identity is not assembled from approval, trends, or emotional dependence, but built through conscious choice and inner inquiry. This kind of independence carries a quiet power. You may speak softly, yet your presence feels grounded. You may choose solitude at times, yet your energy still feels steady in a crowded room. You do not cling to others to feel complete, because you learned early that wholeness must be cultivated from the inside. While many are still searching for themselves in labels, relationships, or social mirrors, you are already walking the inward path, guided by an inner compass shaped through struggle and reflection. This path is not loud, but it is deeply rooted in spiritual wisdom. As Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Yet very few willingly endure the discomfort required to reach that truth. You did not wait for permission to begin that work. Life placed you on that path early, and through it, you developed discernment instead of dependency, depth instead of imitation, and self-authority instead of emotional borrowing. This does not make you cold or distant. It makes you internally anchored. Your independence is not a rejection of connection, but a mature form of it. You do not seek others to complete you, but to share with you. And this is precisely why people may feel both drawn to you and unsettled by you. At the same time, your self-built identity quietly reflects what many have not yet faced within themselves. Your inner stability exposes the fragility of unconscious living without ever needing to say a word. The deeper you move along this inward journey of individuation, the more you realize that your independence is not merely psychological, but spiritual as well. You no longer look to the world to define you. You listen inward to your conscience, your intuition, and a truth that cannot be seen but can be felt. This is where spiritual awakening quietly begins, not with spectacle, but with the steady courage to stand in your truth, even when no one else understands it. And in that silent strength, your life becomes a living expression of the union between Carl Jung's psychology and timeless spiritual wisdom. Affirm your inner strength by commenting below, "I am sovereign in my identity." Let this be your reminder that your independence and self-built identity are guiding you toward your highest truth. 4. Hyperperceptive intuition. Your hyperperceptive intuition gives you an ability that most people will never fully understand, because you do not simply observe the world, you feel it. You sense the subtle shifts in tone, the tightening of someone's jaw, the hesitation behind a forced smile, and the unspoken truth hiding beneath polished words. This is not overthinking. It is what Carl Jung described as perception via the unconscious, a natural and immediate recognition of patterns that others step over blindly. You pick up emotional undercurrents in silence, detect mismatched energy before conflict appears, and notice the tiniest fractures in someone's behavior long before they become visible to the rest of the world. And while people may misunderstand this depth as suspicion or sensitivity, you intuitively know it is far more precise than that, because your mind works in layers. What others hear as conversation, you experience as information woven with nuance, tension, and meaning that lives between the lines. Yet this level of awareness, when left unprotected, can slowly drain you from the inside out, because feeling so much requires boundaries that most people with your rare psychological type never learned to set early in life, especially when they were conditioned to be the healer, the listener, the emotional anchor for everyone else. This intuitive gift becomes heavy not because it is wrong, but because it is constant. You absorb the unresolved grief of a friend when they step into the room. You sense the disappointment someone carries, even when they say they are fine. You feel the shift in someone's energy the moment they lose trust, and you detect misalignment in relationships long before the breakup arrives. And while all of this gives you profound psychological insight, it also becomes a silent burden, because your nervous system is processing information that others are not aware they are even expressing. This is why emotional burnout appears in your life, not as sudden collapse, but as slow erosion. Too much empathy, too many unspoken responsibilities, too much merging with people who never realized how deeply you felt them. Jung warned that without conscious boundaries, the unconscious becomes a force that overwhelms rather than guides. And this is precisely the tension you live through. Sensing everything, yet not always knowing how to filter what isn't yours. Here is where spirituality becomes essential, not as belief, but as a practice of self-preservation. Because your spiritual awakening begins the moment you realize that your intuition is not meant to carry people, but to clarify your own path. As you grow into this awareness, you start recognizing that your intuition is not random. It is a compass. It tells you when a room is unsafe before your logic catches up. It warns you when someone's words do not match their energy. It guides you toward people whose presence feels like alignment, and distances you from those whose presence feels like heaviness. With time, you learn that not every emotional signal requires intervention, not every tension requires healing, and not every sorrow you sense belongs in your hands. You begin to separate empathy from responsibility, compassion from self-abandonment, and awareness from absorption. And once you understand that your sensitivity is not weakness, but refined perception, you stop apologizing for noticing what others overlook. You stop shrinking yourself to make people comfortable. You stop explaining how you know things you shouldn't know. Instead, you trust the quiet truth rising inside you, the same truth that Jung spent his life studying. When the unconscious speaks, the wise learn to listen. And in honoring this rare gift with stronger boundaries, clearer intuition, and deeper self-respect, you transform your hyper-perceptive nature from emotional exhaustion into spiritual clarity, allowing your inner world to become not a sponge for others, but a sanctuary for yourself. 5. Intense craving for meaning and authenticity. You carry an intense craving for meaning and authenticity that quietly governs the way you think, feel, and move through the world. And this is why you cannot tolerate inauthenticity in any form. Shallow goals feel empty to you. Surface-level conversations feel exhausting, and unaligned paths feel almost painful to follow because your inner world demands truth, coherence, and depth. You are not satisfied with appearances or borrowed identities. You want what is real beneath the surface. This inner demand is not something you learned. It is built into your psychological structure, and it constantly pulls you toward alignment between who you are inside and how you live on the outside. Because you live with this level of inner integrity, you naturally reject what is false without needing to argue or attack it. You may simply lose interest, withdraw your energy, or quietly choose a different path. Yet even in your silence, your presence has an effect. Without intending to, you challenge others to confront their own masks, because your refusal to participate in illusion highlights where others are still pretending. In this way, you function as what can only be described as an evolutionary catalyst. Change is stirred in your presence, not because you demand it, but because your way of being exposes what is misaligned. As Carl Jung expressed so powerfully, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And this truth is not just an idea for you. It is a lived experience that shapes your daily choices. Your devotion to truth often places you on a different rhythm from the world around you. You may feel out of place in environments that reward performance over substance or status over sincerity. What excites others may leave you cold, while what truly moves you is meaning, purpose, and inner coherence. This is where your path of spirituality and spiritual development deepens, not through rituals alone, but through the constant inner refinement of values, motives, and identity. You are not driven to accumulate more masks. You are driven to remove them. Over time, your standards in relationships, work, and even self-expression become more precise, not because you are becoming rigid, but because your clarity is sharpening. This clarity, however, can be misunderstood. Some may see your intensity as judgment, your distance as coldness, or your silence as superiority. In truth, your intensity is simply devotion. Your distance is discernment, and your silence is often self-protection. You are not rejecting people, you are rejecting falseness. And this rejection is not destructive, it is surgical. It removes what does not belong so that what is true can finally breathe. Each time you choose alignment over comfort, or truth over approval, something old dissolves and something more essential begins to take shape. Your life, therefore, becomes less about fitting into the world as it is, and more about embodying the deeper potential of who you are becoming. Growth for you does not feel like climbing higher. It feels like going deeper. It feels like shedding, refining, and remembering. You begin to realize that your sensitivity to falseness is not a weakness to be corrected, but a gift to be mastered. It protects you from wasting years on what does not matter. It guides you toward relationships built on truth rather than performance. It anchors you in a form of spirituality that is lived through integrity, not merely spoken through beliefs. And through this discipline of inner honesty, you quietly encourage others to begin their own transformation simply by standing in what is real. Don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom on transforming your search for meaning into true inner fulfillment. 6. Continuous evolution and outgrowing the familiar. You repeatedly outgrow people, places, and even the versions of yourself you once believed would last forever. And this constant shedding is not instability. It is the natural rhythm of transformation that Carl Jung described as psychological death and rebirth. Each time you evolve, something within you must quietly end so something deeper can begin. And that process is rarely comfortable. You begin to feel that you can no longer return to spaces that once felt familiar because they now require you to dim your truth, soften your awareness, or pretend to be smaller than you have become. What once felt like home now feels restrictive. And this inner conflict is one of the clearest signatures of a rare psychological type. As your awareness expands, your tolerance for what is false, stagnant, or misaligned disappears. And this is where many relationships, environments, and even identities begin to fall away. People who once understood you may no longer recognize you, not because you are lost, but because you have changed at a level they cannot yet follow. Jung once said, "What looks like a breakdown is often a breakthrough." And this truth becomes visible in your life as cycles of ending and renewal that shape your character again and again. Every time you rise into a new level of clarity, you lose access to the world you came from. And that loss can feel painful, confusing, and deeply lonely. Yet this loneliness is not emptiness. It is the space where your new self is being formed. You are no longer able to bend your values just to preserve connection, and you no longer have the ability to ignore what your soul now sees. Your growth becomes irreversible. Once a truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. Once your inner world shifts, your outer world must eventually follow. This is why others may resist your change, judge it, or misunderstand it. Your evolution reflects what they may still be avoiding within themselves, and not everyone is ready to face that reflection. This is where spiritual wisdom quietly weaves into psychological transformation. You are not simply changing for ambition, success, or appearance. You are changing because something inside you demands alignment between who you are becoming and how you are living. You would rather experience discomfort than live in contradiction. You would rather walk alone than walk falsely. This is the cost of deep awareness and the quiet mark of a rare inner structure. As Carl Jung warned, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege often arrives wrapped in the pain of outgrowing what once felt safe. Each time you move forward, you leave behind not only people and places, but entire identities, old fears, old beliefs, old self-definitions that no longer hold your truth. Your life begins to feel less like a straight road and more like a series of initiations. Endings arrive without asking permission. New beginnings rise before you feel ready. Yet with every cycle, your inner authority strengthens, your clarity deepens, and your attachment to illusion weakens. You slowly stop fearing loss because you finally understand that every loss has been shaping your ability to live authentically. At a certain point, you no longer ask why doors keep closing behind you. You understand that they close because you no longer belong in the rooms they lead to. This awareness is not only psychological, it is spiritual. True spiritual wisdom is not about staying the same while speaking higher truths. It is about allowing your entire being to transform in alignment with what you now see as real. And the more you honor this inner evolution, the more you realize that your constant change is not chaos. It is the quiet proof of an awakened inner compass, guided not by comfort, but by truth. As Carl Jung revealed through the depths of the human psyche. 7. Transformational presence. Your presence carries a quiet gravity that few can name but many can feel. A gentle yet undeniable pull that makes people open up, soften, and unravel truths they have kept buried for years. Because something about the way you listen without judgment, without rushing, without needing to prove anything, creates an atmosphere where the soul finally exhales. Carl Jung called this the helper syndrome, a rare psychological pattern found in those whose empathy is so deep and whose spirituality is so instinctive that transformation happens around them almost effortlessly. You don't force change. You don't preach change. You simply embody a stillness that invites others to find themselves again, as if your energy quietly tells them, it's safe now. You can come home to yourself. And yet, this powerful gift often begins as a subtle pattern you don't even notice at first. Strangers confide in you within minutes. Friends tell you their darkest truths with trembling voices. And people who usually hide behind emotional armor suddenly break open in your presence. They might say, I don't know why I'm telling you this. And the truth is, they don't, but their subconscious does. Your presence feels like a sanctuary, a warm room in the middle of a storm, a soft ground where their defenses melt and their real selves step forward. This is the mark of someone deep in the process of spiritual awakening. Someone whose inner clarity and emotional intelligence naturally extend into the outer world. People feel lighter after talking to you, not because you solved their problems, but because your calmness reorganizes their chaos. Like two chemical substances meeting, as Jung famously said, if there is any reaction, both are transformed. And with you, there is always a reaction gentle, healing, and often life-changing. But with this gift comes a quiet burden, one that grows heavier if you don't learn the spiritual wisdom hidden underneath. When you hold space so deeply for others, you risk becoming their emotional anchor, the person they lean on for stability, clarity, and meaning. And while your empathy is expansive, it is not infinite. Over time, you may notice your energy fading after long conversations, your thoughts sinking under the emotional weight you've absorbed, your spirit becoming quieter, not in peace, but in exhaustion. This is where discernment becomes essential. You are here to guide, not to carry, to reflect, not to absorb, to support, not to lose yourself inside someone else's inner storm. Without boundaries, the helper becomes the one who needs help, not because they are weak, but because they gave too much without realizing their own needs. As your spirituality deepens, you learn to distinguish between being present and being consumed. You begin to understand that true service does not wound the servant, and real compassion does not require self-sacrifice. You start recognizing the moments when someone seeks your presence not to heal, but to escape their own responsibility. The moments when silence is wiser than advice. The moments when walking away is more loving than staying. And with this awareness, your transformational presence evolves into something even stronger, an energy that heals without draining, that guides without rescuing, that empowers without absorbing the other person's shadows. Your role changes from emotional sponge to conscious mirror, from quiet caretaker to awakened soul who knows how to hold space without losing yourself inside it. And in that shift, you discover the rarest truth of all. Your presence transforms others most powerfully when you are also fully present for yourself. To honor your transformational presence declare it with confidence. Comment below. I rise and transform to affirm your growth and inspire others to awaken their power too. 8. Deep inner sense of purpose. Even if undefined, you feel a quiet but persistent pull towards something meaningful that you cannot yet fully explain. And this feeling is neither random nor driven by ego, but rises from a deeper place within you. Carl Jung described this mysterious force as potential seeking expression, a truth that lives in your soul long before your mind can give it a name. When you ignore this inner calling, life may begin to feel strangely empty, heavy with anxiety, or lacking direction, even when everything on the surface appears successful. Yet when you begin to live in harmony with it, a subtle but powerful sense of peace and fulfillment starts to grow. Not because all your questions are answered, but because your inner and outer worlds begin moving in the same direction through spirituality and spiritual development. This inner purpose often reveals itself through restlessness, deep sensitivity to meaning, and an unshakable sense that you were meant for more than survival, routines, or shallow ambition. You may feel different from others, not because you are better, but because you are wired to search beneath the surface of life. The discomfort you experience when living out of alignment is not a weakness. It is a signal from your psyche that something essential is being ignored. Jung believed that when this inner voice is suppressed, the soul suffers, and that suffering often shows up as emotional fatigue, dissatisfaction without a clear cause, or the haunting feeling that your true life has not yet fully begun. As you begin to listen inwardly, even in small ways, you may notice gentle shifts unfolding. Your priorities start to change, your relationships transform, and your choices become guided more by inner truth than by external validation. What once felt like confusion begins to reveal itself as preparation. What once felt like weakness becomes a pathway to depth, and what once felt like loneliness becomes space for authenticity. You are no longer driven by the need to impress, but by the desire to become real. Peace does not come from certainty, but from sincerity. It does not come from control, but from trust. It does not come from perfection, but from honest participation in your own becoming. Your purpose does not arrive as a loud revelation or a single dramatic moment. More often, it appears as a direction rather than a destination, a way of being rather than a status or title. It guides you through intuition, moments of discomfort, unexpected synchronicities, and quiet inner resonance. As you follow these signals, your outer world slowly reshapes itself to mirror the truth you are discovering within. You may not immediately gain clarity about where the path will lead, but you gain something far more powerful: a sense of coherence, a feeling that your thoughts, values, and actions are finally aligned. The deeper message is clear. Your inner calling is real, even when it feels undefined, and ignoring it breeds anxiety, while honoring it cultivates peace. Discomfort often acts as a compass rather than a flaw, and true fulfillment grows from alignment rather than achievement. Your spiritual development unfolds not through force, pressure, or comparison, but through quiet awareness, courage, and steady attention to what your soul has been trying to express all along. In the end, discovering that you may carry one of the rarest psychological types on earth is not about feeling superior. It is about understanding your depth, your sensitivity, and your unique responsibility to the world, as Carl Jung so beautifully revealed through his wisdom. If these 8 signs resonate with your inner life, it may be a reminder that your way of seeing, feeling, and thinking is not meant to be hidden, but honored and refined through self-awareness and conscious growth. If you found value in this message, please like the video, share it with someone who needs this insight, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more deep psychological and spiritual teachings. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos on Carl Jung, self-discovery, and inner awakening.